Welcome, Paradoxers, to Chapter 10 recap of Time Paradox Ghostwriter. Itsuki Aino is the title. Alright, so in the last chapter, Sasaki is attempting to write White Knight on his own, and Itsuki Aino just received notification that she's getting her own series, and she said goodbye to Sasaki. And that's where we begin this chapter, with a flashback actually, where we get to know the beginnings of Itsuki Aino. Apparently, when she was a child, she used to go to a park every day, and she encountered a man who was trying to sell Shonen Jumps, and he had all the volumes, and he befriended her and allowed her to read them at the park every day. Not suspicious at all. We will be getting into this much deeper later on, but she has a little bit of a relationship with the old dude, and it's revealed that this is the beginnings of her wanting to be a mangaka. This is where the love was stoked for the comics. And so here she is, eventually coming to the end of the relationship, where she is growing into her things as a mangaka, and he decides to leave the park. And weirdly enough, he leaves all the manga for her, even though he was there to sell it. Leaves her with a robot similar to the robot that we have seen all this time that talks to Sasaki, and he leaves a note saying, the same thing, leaving the collection. The toy is meaningful, and that leads off into Itsuki's professional path, where she starts off young, and there's a beautiful chapter where they show her where the part in her hair gradually drifts until it's Sanji-like and covers one eye. And of course, you see the progression over the time of her sailor suit and to pajamas and grade school uniforms and all that. Moving on, we finally get to the point where the series began in chapter 1, where she has a version of White Knight, and soon after that, she discovers that it is published in Jump by Sasaki. So we finally get to see from her point of view what it was like, and that she was indeed spirit breaking. But she decided to do something positive with it, and she actually joined Sasaki as of these last 7 chapters as an assistant. And now we are here. We are in the part where she is working on her own series, Anima, and the editor Munioka lets her know that she's been #1 in the surveys, so she has surpassed Sasaki and White Knight. And not only that, time has passed yet again in the series. So 30 straight weeks at #1. So 30 straight weeks is almost a year, 8 months, right? And we see her kind of get into a destructive path, just like Sasaki did when he was becoming obsessed, doing the best he can. And so here we see Itsuki do the same thing. She tells Munioka that the assistants are not coming anymore. She's doing all the drawing herself to up the quality, and Munioka is obviously concerned, but he can't stop her from doing it if she's returning all the art on time. And finally, we are getting into the kicker in this story. She is actually losing herself after 30 weeks of being #1. We start to touch on the philosophy of the manga creation that they started to talk about in chapter 3 when she assaulted Sasaki in the street. And so we go back to the past, where it's revealed that the reason why she started is because she needed manga. As the old gentleman, who we don't know who it is, says, manga is nonsense to some people, but there are some people that need such nonsensical stories, and that's how he hooks her into it. And then the last page, very dramatic star falling from the sky, falling star, and we see, of course, Itsuki collapsed. Obviously, I don't think she's dead, but it's very sad to see her hair clip fall on the floor. Very dramatic to also have the ink spilled right near her guts, and wearing the same dress she has for apparently 30 straight weeks. Okay, what a crazy chapter. I'm gonna start getting into notes right now, and what a doozy we have. So I think the first thing that we need to talk about is the old man. The old man is... Who is this dude? I mean, I'm on Twitter today after the manga released, and everyone is thinking, is that Teppei? And that was my initial thought too. Obviously, with a time travel manga, we are starting to get a little bit crazy with our conspiracy theories, and I'm not sure if it is him, but it is very suspicious. I mean, just think about what is happening there. He has all the copies of Jump. He's at the park where she hangs out. He actually makes a comment saying, like, is this your normal place where you hang out? I'll move if I am bothering you. So it's obviously he knows she's there, and then he's there every day, right? I mean, do you have better things to do than come to a park every day and let a little girl read manga? And I think it's very suspicious. And some of the things that he says is like, when she's reading one of the chapters, you see it actually has Mirai the robot, right? She says, yeah, I love this one. And he says, thank you. So that implies that that was his story. And another interesting thing is he acts surprised when she says she wants to be a mangaka, which I think is weird. So if he had like a motive from the future, I mean, would he be surprised, or is that a look of satisfaction? I'm not quite sure. So those are my notes for the old man. I actually don't know who it is. He obviously doesn't have a mullet. Teppei's character design is vague enough where it doesn't look exactly like him. I mean, if you look at the chin structure, the facial hair, that's not stuff that Teppei has right now. The eyeglasses, nothing. It could be like anyone as of what I'm looking at right now. So to speak about the robot, now the robot is really interesting. So the robot is pictured in the manga that Itsuki said that she loved, right? And so if we go back to chapter 1, that there is an offhand comment when Sasaki graduates from high school and is given the robot. I think that they refer to the robot as being from a manga series called Mirai, the robot from the future. And so that's the connection. It could be like a toy based off of the manga that she's reading. And I did confirm that it's the same robot that Teppei has. It has the MI characters on the top of it. And I mean, it looks the same. So this is something that I think they're going to try to pay off. And my prediction is that they brought up Sasaki's mentor, the vitamin manga guy, the vitamin manga gag guy. So I think that maybe he is the one who created Mirai, the robot from the future, in some way, or I don't know, but maybe he has something to do with that. But anyway, they don't really... It's very confusing what the robot means, because if it's a toy, it's very different from being a time travel device, and they're setting up the connections. As far as I know, Teppei Sasaki doesn't have a connection to the robot other than someone just gave it to him. It doesn't mean anything to him. And currently the robot is speaking to him, which is interesting, but I'm not quite sure what the connection is. Maybe I need to marinate on this further. And the last thing I will talk about is how the philosophy of the manga creation process has changed or has not changed. So I thought it was fairly interesting. Like, they're talking about manga being a transparent masterpiece. I'm not sure I believe that. They do talk about it in the chapter 3 when Itsuki and Sasaki meet and fight, they are pretty consistent with the messaging of they are trying to create a manga that entertains all humanity, and they don't have much to say internally, but that's different than what I think is commonly accepted in modern manga making. In Bakuman and in this series and through mangaka interviews, they always say, what is your voice? Going back to chapter 1, that's what the editor tells Sasaki. So I wonder if they're setting this up so that everyone all the creators in this manga, Itsuki and Teppei Sasaki, are going to learn a lesson from it. I'm not quite sure, but the philosophy part, which they're bringing up again, it seems to me like they're foreshadowing something. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. I do want to say that I made a Twitter post on Saturday trying to figure out if Time Paradox Ghostwriter is doing okay or not. You can just read that post. I mean, just to break it down for you, I think it's way too early. The volume is coming out on August 4th in Japan, so that's actually some numbers that we can track. And of course, if they make it another 50 chapters or so, maybe we can get anime, and that will be proof that it will be performing quite well. It's way too early. We're literally in chapter 1, so I don't really have a comment on how well the series is doing. Although it is quite alarming how quickly it time skips, but I'm just curious if that's just the nature of a sci-fi genre, instead of thinking of it as like a Bakuman process manga. Alright, that's it. Check me out on Twitter at Paradox Tweeter, and see you guys next week for chapter 11.